The espresso machine was having another breakdown at midnight, just like my marriage. I stood in our kitchen, sleeves rolled up, trying to fix the damn thing while Marisol held court in the living room with her phone pressed to her ear. The machine hissed and gurgled like an animal, but I could still hear every word she was saying. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Trust me, Serena, tonight's going to be perfect, Marisol laughed, that crystalline sound that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my jaw clench. He'll finally work up the courage to confront me about Rafe, and I'll crush him, right there at the charity gala, in front of everyone who matters in this city. I froze, my hand still gripping the wrench. The espresso machine's final rattle seemed to echo my own pulse. The best part? Marisol continued, her voice dripping with satisfaction. He's paying for the whole event, $20,000 for the privilege of watching me destroy him publicly. My wife of 12 years was planning my humiliation like a military operation, and apparently, I was financing it. I set down the wrench carefully, quietly. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see Marisol pacing in her silk robe, gesturing animatedly as she spoke. Her dark hair caught the lamplight, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with in law school. Then she spoke again. Gideon's so pathetically predictable. He thinks he's this brilliant lawyer, but he can't even see what's happening in his own house. Rafe and I have been laughing about it for months. There it was. Confirmation of what I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. My wife was cheating on me with Rafael Ortega, the smug tech entrepreneur who'd been sniffing around her digital marketing agency for the past year. And apparently, they found my ignorance hilarious. No, I'm not worried about Emily, Marisol was saying, referring to our 16-year-old daughter. She's already on my side. Have you seen her TikToks? Cringe boomer dad versus cool mom and her squad. The kid knows which way the wind's blowing. The espresso machine gave one final shuddering gasp and fell silent. Kind of like my faith in humanity. I'd built my career as a corporate lawyer on reading people, on seeing through lies and manipulation. But somehow, I'd missed the fact that my own wife had turned our marriage into performance art, with me as the unwitting fool. Serena, you're a genius for setting this up, Marisol continued. Getting Gideon to sponsor the gala was brilliant. He'll pay for his own execution. Serena Tran, Marisol's business partner and supposed best friend. I should have known she was involved. That woman had the moral flexibility of a contortionist and the loyalty of a mercenary. I walked to the kitchen window and stared out at our neighborhood. Manicured lawns, expensive cars, the American dream wrapped in a mortgage. Everything looked normal from the outside, just like my marriage. But underneath, it was all rotting. Oh, he's definitely going to make a scene, Marisol laughed. You know how he gets when his ego's bruised, all that sarcastic lawyer bullshit. But by the time I'm done with him, everyone will see him for what he really is. A bitter, controlling man who can't handle a strong, independent woman. Strong and independent. Right. She'd been living off my income for 3 years while her agency bled money, but sure, let's call it independence. I heard her footsteps approaching the kitchen and quickly returned to the espresso machine, pretending to be absorbed in my repair work. Still playing with your toys? She asked, her voice honey-sweet now that she had an audience. Just trying to fix what's broken, I said without looking up. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Well, don't stay up too late. Tomorrow's a big day. She kissed the top of my head, a gesture that once meant love but now felt like marking territory. The gala's going to be amazing. I can't wait for everyone to see what we've accomplished. What we've accomplished, as if she hadn't just been planning my public destruction 30 seconds ago. I'm sure it'll be memorable, I said. After she went upstairs, I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of my failed repair job. tools scattered across the counter, coffee grounds dusting the floor, the machine still broken. It felt like a metaphor for everything else in my life. But here's the thing about being a lawyer. You learn to play the long game. You learn that the best revenge isn't hot and immediate. It's cold and calculated. You document everything. You build your case methodically. And when you finally strike, you make sure it's devastating. Marisol thought she was directing this little drama, but she just handed me the script. And unlike her, I actually knew how to read the fine print. I pulled out my phone and started a voice memo. Day 1 of evidence collection, I said quietly. Subject believes she's in control of the narrative. Subject is incorrect. Tomorrow night, at the gala I was indeed paying for, Marisol expected me to play the role of the humiliated husband, and I would. But not the way she'd written it. Because apparently my wife had never heard the old saying about lawyers, we don't get mad, we get even. And we always read the contract before we sign. The espresso machine sat there, broken and silent. But unlike my marriage, some things could actually be fixed. I just had to decide what was worth saving. The next morning arrived with the kind of gray, oppressive sky that made everything look like a crime scene waiting to happen. I'd slept maybe 2 hours, but adrenaline was keeping me sharp. Marisol was already gone when I woke up, probably off somewhere rehearsing her performance for tonight. I made coffee with our backup machine and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my assistant, Bobby Dre, and a text that made my blood pressure spike. Emergency at the office. Hartwell case is imploding. Perfect. Because what I really needed today was a professional crisis to go with my personal apocalypse. The drive to downtown took 40 minutes through traffic that seemed personally vindictive. My law firm occupied 3 floors of a glass tower that scraped the belly of those gray clouds, and from the outside, it looked impressive. Inside, it was a shark tank with better lighting. Gideon, thank God, Bobby said the moment I stepped off the elevator. She was 29, whip-smart, and had the kind of quiet competence that made her invaluable. Hartwell's threatening to pull the account. Says we missed a filing timeline. We didn't miss anything, I said, heading toward my office. Hartwell's just nervous about the merger. Schedule a conference call for noon. I'll walk him through the timeline. Already done. But there's something else. Bobby followed me, her voice dropping. I've been going through the quarterly reports and there are some irregularities in the expense accounts. I stopped walking. What kind of irregularities? Charges to the firm credit card that don't match any client entertainment or business expenses. Restaurants, hotels, a weekend at that new spa resort upstate. All signed off by... She hesitated. By who, Bobby? By Marisol. She's listed as an authorized user on your corporate account. Of course she was. I'd added her years ago when her agency was struggling and she needed to wine and dine potential clients. But that was supposed to be temporary, and it was definitely supposed to be for business. How much are we talking about? 15,000 over the past 6 months? And Gideon? The hotel charges? They're all for double occupancy. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not only was my wife cheating on me, she was funding her affair with my money. The money I earned working 60-hour weeks to keep us living in the style she'd grown accustomed to. Pull everything, I said. Every receipt, every charge, every transaction. I want a complete audit by end of business today. You got it. And Gideon? I'm sorry. I looked at Bobby. Really looked at her. She'd been with the firm for 3 years, and I'd always appreciated her professionalism. But right now, there was something else in her expression. Sympathy, yes, but also anger on my behalf. Don't be sorry, I said. Be thorough. The Hartwell call went smoothly, crisis averted with a combination of legal expertise and strategic ego-stroking. But I spent the rest of the day thinking about those hotel receipts. Marisol and Rafe living it up on my dime while planning my downfall. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. Around 4 o'clock, my daughter Emily called. "Dad, are you excited about tonight?" Her voice had that forced brightness that teenagers used when they were performing enthusiasm. "Sure, sweetheart. It should be interesting. Mom's been working so hard on this. She says it's going to be the event of the year. I'm sure it will be memorable." There was a pause. "Dad, are you and Mom okay? You've been kind of distant lately." My 16-year-old daughter asking if her parents were okay. Christ, how long had this been obvious to everyone except me? "We're fine, Em. Just busy with work stuff. You know how it is." "Okay. Well, I'll see you tonight. I'm bringing Cameron." Cameron was her boyfriend, a decent kid from what I could tell. At least someone in my family had good judgment in romantic partners. Looking forward to meeting him properly. After she hung up, I sat in my office and stared out at the city. From the 32nd floor, everything looked orderly, manageable. Streets laid out in neat grids, traffic flowing in predictable patterns, people moving with purpose toward their destinations. But I knew better now. Chaos was everywhere, hiding behind the facade of normalcy. Wives betrayed husbands, friends plotted destruction, children chose sides without understanding the war they were joining. My phone buzzed with a text from Marisol. "Don't forget, black tie tonight. Try not to embarrass me." Try not to embarrass her. The woman who was planning to humiliate me in front of half the city was worried about my behavior. I typed back, "Wouldn't dream of it." At 6 o'clock, I drove home to get ready. The house was empty. Marisol was probably at the venue making final preparations for my execution. I took a long shower and put on my best tuxedo, the one I'd worn to our wedding. It still fit perfectly, which felt like a small victory in a day full of defeats. I was adjusting my cufflinks when I heard Marisol's car in the driveway. She swept in like a hurricane in designer heels, already dressed for the gala in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. "You look good," she said, and for a moment, her smile seemed genuine. "Ready for our big night?" "Ready as I'll ever be." She moved closer, adjusting my bow tie with practiced efficiency. Her perfume was different, something new and expensive, probably a gift from Rafe. "Gideon, I want you to know that whatever happens tonight, I do care about you. We've had good years together." The past tense wasn't lost on me. She was already writing my eulogy. "Whatever happens?" I asked. "Oh, you know how these events can be. Lots of drama, lots of gossip. People love their entertainment." "And you're planning to give them some?" Her smile sharpened. "I'm planning to give them exactly what they want." We drove to the venue separately. She claimed she needed to arrive early for last-minute preparations, but I suspected she wanted to coordinate with her co-conspirators. The Lakeside Event Center was one of those places that existed purely to separate rich people from their money, all marble and crystal and views of water that looked black as oil in the evening light. I pulled into the parking lot and sat in my car for a moment, watching other guests arrive. Politicians, business leaders, society wives, the whole ecosystem of people who mattered in our mid-sized city. They were all here to support a good cause and enjoy an evening of fine dining and social networking. They had no idea they were about to witness an execution. But then again, neither did the condemned woman. I straightened my shoulders, checked my phone one more time, and walked toward the venue. Time for the performance to begin. The lakeside venue was already buzzing with the kind of controlled chaos that marked every high society event. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes while a string quartet played something appropriately elegant and forgettable. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lake Michigan stretched out like a dark mirror, reflecting the lights from the venue back at us. I'd been to dozens of these things over the years, but tonight felt different. Tonight, I was seeing it all through new eyes, the careful choreography of social positioning, the subtle hierarchies, the way conversations shifted when certain people approached. It was like watching a nature documentary about predators and prey. Gideon, there you are. Serena Tran materialized beside me with the silent efficiency of a practiced operator. She looked stunning, as always. Black hair in a perfect chignon, makeup that probably took 2 hours, a dress that cost more than my car payment. Marisol's been looking for you. I'm sure she has. I accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter and studied Serena's face. Now that I knew she was part of the conspiracy, I could see the calculation behind her smile. This is quite an event. You and Marisol have outdone yourselves. We do make a good team. She touched my arm, a gesture that looked friendly but felt like marking territory. I hope you're prepared for tonight to be memorable. Oh, I'm counting on it. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or concern. But before she could respond, Rafael Ortega appeared at her shoulder like a bad omen in an expensive suit. Gideon, he said, extending his hand with the kind of aggressive friendliness that fooled no one. Great to see you, man. Hell of a party you're throwing here. I shook his hand and resisted the urge to crush his fingers. Rafe was one of those guys who'd been told he was special so often that he actually believed it. Trust fund kid turned tech entrepreneur, the kind of man who thought disruption was a personality trait. Well, it's for a good cause, I said. Children's literacy programs, important work. Absolutely. Though I have to say, the real star of the show is your wife. Marisol's been incredible organizing all this. You're a lucky man. The sheer balls of the guy, standing there and talking about my wife while he was actively screwing her. I had to admire the performance, even as I planned his destruction. I certainly am, I said. She's full of surprises. That she is. Rafe's smile had a predatory edge. Speaking of which, I think she has something special planned for later. You should be prepared. I always am. Serena was watching our exchange with the intensity of a chess master, trying to read the board. I could see her mentally cataloging my responses, looking for signs of weakness or knowledge. But I'd been practicing law for 15 years. I knew how to keep my face neutral. Well, we should let you mingle, Serena said finally. Lots of important people here tonight. Wouldn't want you to miss any networking opportunities. They drifted away together, probably to report back to Marisol that I seemed appropriately clueless. I watched them go, noting how they moved in perfect synchronization, like dancers who'd rehearsed their steps. Dad! Emily appeared at my elbow, radiant in a blue dress that made her look far too grown up. Cameron was beside her, looking nervous in a rented tux. This place is amazing. Mom really knows how to throw a party. She certainly does. I shook Cameron's hand. Good to see you again, son. You taking good care of my daughter? Yes, sir, absolutely. Emily rolled her eyes. Dad, don't interrogate him. We're going to get some food. The shrimp cocktail looks incredible. I watched them walk away, Emily already pulling out her phone to document everything for her social media followers, my daughter turning my public humiliation into content, the modern world in all its glory. Gideon hail as I live and breathe. I turned to find Marcus Webb approaching, drink in hand and grin on his face. Marcus had been my best friend since college, the best man at my wedding, godfather to Emily. If anyone should have had my back tonight, it was him. Marcus, good to see you. Likewise. Though I have to ask, you doing okay, buddy? You seem a little tense. Just the usual work stress. You know how it is. Marcus nodded, but his expression was troubled. Listen, Gideon, I've been meaning to talk to you. About Marisol. Here it comes, I thought, the moment when my best friend reveals that he's known about the affair all along. What about her? Well, it's just... Look, this is awkward as hell, but Jennifer and I have been worried. We've seen her around town with that Ortega guy, and it doesn't look entirely professional. Jennifer was Marcus's wife, and the two couples had been close for years. Double dates, family vacations, shared holidays. If they'd noticed Marisol's behavior, then it really wasn't as subtle as she thought. I appreciate the concern, but Marisol and Rafe are business partners. Her agency is handling his company's marketing campaign. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Gideon, I saw them at Chez Laurent last week. They weren't discussing business. Chez Laurent was the most romantic restaurant in the city. Candlelit tables, wine that cost more per bottle than most people made in a day, the kind of place where marriage proposals happened. Not exactly a business meeting venue. I see. Look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's innocent. But as your friend, I felt like I had to say something. As my friend. Right. When exactly did you see them? Last Tuesday, around 8 o'clock. They were very close, holding hands across the table, that kind of thing. Last Tuesday, Marisol had told me she was having dinner with a potential client, a female client from Chicago. Another lie in an increasingly elaborate web of deception. I appreciate you telling me, I said carefully. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, the lights dimmed and a spotlight hit the small stage at the front of the room. Marisol stepped into the light, microphone in hand, looking like a movie star. The crowd fell silent, all attention focused on her. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual charity gala, she began, her voice carrying perfectly across the room. I'm Marisol Vega, and I'm thrilled to see so many of you here tonight, supporting such an important cause. She launched into her prepared remarks about childhood literacy, the importance of education, the difference we could all make. She was good at this, charismatic, passionate, convincing. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed she actually cared about something other than herself. But before we continue with the evening's program, she said, her tone shifting slightly, I want to take a moment to thank someone very special, my husband, Gideon Hale, whose generous sponsorship made tonight possible. The spotlight swung to me, and suddenly I was the center of attention. Polite applause rippled through the crowd as I raised my champagne flute in acknowledgement. Gideon is many things, Marisol continued, her smile never wavering. A successful lawyer, a devoted father, and a man who believes in supporting his community. But most importantly, he's a man who understands that sometimes you have to pay for what you want. The words hit me like a physical blow. She was doing it, starting the humiliation right here, right now, in front of everyone. The crowd was still applauding, but I could see confusion starting to creep into some faces. That last line had been oddly phrased, almost threatening. So please, join me in thanking Gideon for his generosity. Without him, none of this would be possible. More applause, but now it felt different, uncertain, like people weren't sure what they were clapping for. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I was cataloging every face in the crowd. These people were about to witness something, and I wanted to remember who was here when it happened. Marisol handed the microphone to the event coordinator and stepped down from the stage. As she moved through the crowd toward me, I could see Serena and Rafe positioning themselves strategically around the room. Whatever they had planned, it was about to begin. Great speech, I said when she reached me. Thank you. I meant every word. Her eyes glittered with something that might have been excitement or malice. Ready for the main event? I've been ready all day. She studied my face, looking for something. Fear, maybe, or panic. But I'd had years of practice at hiding my emotions in courtrooms, and tonight was just another kind of trial. Good, she said finally, because I have something to tell you, something I think you need to hear. Here we go, I thought. Time for the execution. But as Marisol opened her mouth to deliver what she thought would be the final blow, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small, cream-colored envelope. Actually, I said, my voice carrying just far enough for the people around us to hear, I have something for you first. The envelope was nothing special, just cream-colored paper from the hotel gift shop, the kind used for thank-you notes or wedding invitations. But as I held it out to Marisol, It might as well have been a loaded gun for the way her expression changed. "What's this?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. But I could see the calculation in her eyes, the rapid mental assessment of this unexpected variable in her carefully planned scenario. "Just a little something I thought you should see, before you say whatever it is you're planning to say." The crowd around us was pretending not to watch, but I could feel their attention like heat from a spotlight. Marcus was frowning, clearly sensing that something was off. Serena had moved closer, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite hide the predatory alertness underneath. Rafe was hanging back, probably waiting for his cue to make his entrance. "Can't this wait?" Marisol asked. "We're in the middle of an event." "Oh, I think this is exactly the right time." I kept my voice pleasant, conversational. "Go ahead. Open it." She took the envelope, with fingers that trembled slightly, the first crack in her composed facade. As she tore it open, I watched her face carefully. Years of cross-examining witnesses had taught me to read micro-expressions, and what I saw was beautiful. Confusion shifting to shock, then to something approaching terror. Inside the envelope were three things: a photograph, a hotel receipt, and a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. The photograph showed Marisol and Rafe in an intimate embrace outside Chez Laurent, the same restaurant Marcus had mentioned. But this wasn't from last Tuesday. This was from 3 months ago, when she'd told me she was at a conference in Detroit. The timestamp on the photo was clearly visible. The hotel receipt was from the Grandview Resort, the spa weekend that had shown up on my corporate credit card. 2 nights, presidential suite, charged to my account while I was working overtime on the Morrison case, but it was the handwritten note that made her face go white. "Darling, I can't wait to see Gideon's face when you tell him tonight. The look of betrayal, the humiliation, it'll be perfect. Make sure someone gets it on video. We'll want to remember this moment forever. R." Rafe's handwriting, Rafe's words, Rafe's complete lack of understanding about how evidence worked in the digital age. "Where did you get this?" Marisol whispered. "Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about it?" She looked around desperately, probably searching for Serena or Rafe, but they'd both melted back into the crowd. Predators always abandoned ship when the situation turned against them. "Gideon, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations. Very creative." I took a sip of champagne, savoring the moment. "But here's the thing, Marisol. I'm a lawyer. I deal in evidence, and I have so much more evidence than what's in that envelope." "You're bluffing." "Am I? 3 months of hotel receipts, all charged to my corporate account. Restaurant bills from places you told me you'd never been. Text messages. Oh, the text messages are particularly interesting. Did you know that when you delete something from your phone, it doesn't actually disappear from the cloud backup? Technology is amazing." Her face was cycling through emotions like a slot machine. Anger, fear, calculation, desperation. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" I laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut glass. "I want exactly what you planned to give me tonight. A public revelation of the truth. The only difference is I'm going to be the one telling the story. You wouldn't dare." "Wouldn't I? You were planning to humiliate me in front of all these people. You were going to destroy my reputation, my relationships, my standing in this community, all while spending my money to finance your affair." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Did you really think I'd just stand here and take it?" Marcus had moved closer, clearly trying to hear what was happening. Other conversations were starting to fade down as people sensed drama in the air. Emily was across the room with Cameron, thankfully distracted by the dessert table. "Please," Marisol said, and for the first time in years, she sounded genuinely vulnerable. "Not here. Not like this." "Why not here? This is your party, isn't it? Your moment in the spotlight? I'm just making sure you get the attention you deserve." I stepped back, and raised my voice just enough to carry to the nearest clusters of guests. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment. Gideon, don't. But I was already moving toward the stage, the envelope still in my hand. The crowd parted in front of me like water, sensing that something significant was about to happen. Behind me, I could hear Marisol's heels clicking frantically on the marble floor as she tried to catch up. I reached the microphone and tapped it gently. The sound echoed through the room, and conversations faded as faces turned toward me. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying the party. I smiled, the expression feeling strange on my face. I wanted to take a moment to talk about marriage, about trust, about the importance of really knowing the person you're sharing your life with. In the crowd, I could see Serena pushing through guests, her face a mask of panic. Rafe was nowhere to be seen, probably hiding in the bathroom or making a run for his car. My wife Marisol was planning to make an announcement tonight, something she thought would surprise me. But I have to say, I'm not easily surprised anymore. You see, when you're married to someone for 12 years, you learn to pay attention to the details. Marisol had reached the edge of the stage. Gideon, please stop this. Stop what? I'm just sharing some interesting facts with our friends. For instance, did you know that my wife has been using my corporate credit card to finance romantic getaways with her business partner, Rafael Ortega? $15,000 over the past 6 months. That's a lot of room service. A murmur ran through the crowd. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. In the age of social media, everything was content. Or that she's been planning this evening as some kind of elaborate humiliation ritual. She was going to announce her affair publicly, thinking it would destroy me socially and professionally. The plan was quite detailed, actually. Very thorough. You're lying, Marisol said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Should I read some of the text messages? They're quite illuminating. Here's one from last week. Can't wait to see Gideon's face when he realizes everyone knows what a fool he's been. This is going to be better than Christmas. The crowd was fully engaged now, the polite murmur turning into something more intense. This was better than reality television. This was real people destroying each other in real time. But here's what really gets me, I continued, my voice gaining strength. It wasn't enough to cheat on me. It wasn't enough to steal from me. She wanted to humiliate me publicly, to destroy my reputation in front of my friends and colleagues. She wanted to make me pay for the privilege of being betrayed. I held up the envelope. So I have a counter-proposal. Instead of me being humiliated tonight, how about we give that honor to someone who actually deserves it? Gideon, think about Emily, Marisol pleaded. Think about our daughter. I am thinking about Emily. I'm thinking about what kind of example we're setting for her. I'm thinking about whether we want to teach her that betrayal and manipulation are acceptable or that actions have consequences. I looked out at the crowd and found Emily's face. She was staring at me with a mixture of confusion and dawning horror, finally understanding that her parents' marriage was imploding in front of half the city. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my wife, Marisol Vega. Successful businesswoman, devoted mother, and according to these text messages, the best actress this side of Hollywood. She's been playing the role of loving wife while conducting a very public affair, funded by my money and planned with the help of her business partner, Serena Tran. Serena had stopped pushing through the crowd and was now backing toward the exit, her face pale with panic. The affair itself is almost boring in its predictability, I continued. Married woman, younger man, secret rendezvous at expensive hotels. But the planning, the deliberate cruelty, the sheer calculation of it all, that's what makes it special. That's what makes it worth sharing with all of you. I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have months of documentation, photos, receipts, text messages, emails, a complete record of deception and betrayal. And starting tomorrow, it's all going to be very, very public. The room had gone completely silent except for the soft clicking of phone cameras. This was going to be all over social media within the hour, shared and reshared until it became the stuff of local legend. So thank you all for coming tonight, I said, setting down the microphone. Thank you for being here to witness the truth. And thank you, Marisol, for reminding me why I became a lawyer in the first place. Justice isn't always pretty, but it's always necessary. I stepped down from the stage and walked toward the exit, leaving my wife standing alone in the spotlight, surrounded by the wreckage of her own ambitions. Behind me, I could hear the crowd erupting into conversation, voices raised in excitement and shock. I could hear Emily calling my name, confusion and anger in her voice. I could hear Marisol trying to salvage something from the disaster, her voice shrill with desperation. But I didn't look back. I'd said what needed to be said, done what needed to be done. The rest was just cleanup. I made it to the parking lot before the first wave of people started following me out. The cool night air felt like a blessing after the suffocating atmosphere inside, and for a moment, I just stood beside my car, breathing deeply and listening to the sound of voices echoing from the venue behind me. Gideon! Gideon! Wait! I turned to see Marcus jogging toward me, his face flushed with exertion and confusion. Behind him, other guests were starting to emerge from the venue, some heading for their cars, others clustering in small groups to dissect what they'd just witnessed. Jesus Christ, what was that? Marcus demanded when he reached me. You just nuked your own marriage in front of half the city. My marriage was already gone, I said, pulling out my car keys. I just made it official. But the way you did it, Gideon, that was brutal, even for you. Brutal? I laughed, and the sound was sharp with bitter amusement. Marcus, my wife was planning to do exactly the same thing to me. The only difference is I had better evidence. So this was all planned? You knew about the affair? I found out yesterday. Overheard her on the phone, planning my public humiliation. She was going to announce the affair tonight, make me look like a fool in front of everyone who matters in my professional and social life, all while I paid for the privilege. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to process everything. But Emily was in there. Your daughter just watched you destroy her mother. That hit harder than I'd expected. I'd been so focused on my revenge that I hadn't fully considered the collateral damage. Emily's face, when she realized what was happening, the confusion, the horror, the betrayal she must be feeling. Emily's 16, I said, trying to convince myself as much as Marcus. She's old enough to understand that actions have consequences, and she's old enough to know that what her mother did was wrong. She's still a kid, Gideon, and you just blew up her world. Before I could respond, my phone started buzzing with notifications, text messages, missed calls, social media alerts. The digital wildfire was already spreading. I need to go, I said, opening my car door. Where? You can't just leave. You need to deal with this. I am dealing with it. My way. I got in the car and started the engine. But before I could pull away, another figure appeared at my window. Serena Tran, her perfect composure finally cracked, her makeup smeared with what might have been tears. I rolled down the window. Serena, enjoying the party? You bastard, she said, her voice shaking with rage. You have no idea what you've just done. I have a pretty good idea. I just exposed a conspiracy to humiliate and defraud me. In legal terms, that's called justice. Marisol is in there crying her eyes out. Emily won't even look at her. You've destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything. I just revealed what was already broken. Serena leaned closer to the window, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won something. But this isn't over, Gideon. Not by a long shot. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I rolled up the window and pulled away, leaving Serena standing in the parking lot like a fury in designer heels. In my rearview mirror, I could see more people emerging from the venue, the party clearly over despite being only half finished. My phone was still buzzing constantly. I ignored it until I reached a red light, then glanced at the screen. Dozens of messages, but one caught my attention. Dad, we need to talk. Emily, my daughter. The collateral damage I hadn't wanted to think about. She was still at the venue, probably dealing with the aftermath of watching her parents' marriage explode in public. She'd need a ride home, need someone to explain what had just happened, need reassurance that the world wasn't completely insane. But I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. I needed time to process what I'd done, to prepare for the consequences that were already starting to unfold. Instead of going home, I found myself driving to the boxing gym where I'd been working out for the past few months. Coach Biggs had given me a key after I'd started coming in for late-night sessions, and the place was empty at this hour. I changed into workout clothes I kept in my locker and started hitting the heavy bag, each punch a release of tension and anger and something that might have been regret. The rhythm was hypnotic: jab, cross, hook, uppercut. And for a while I could almost forget about everything except the impact of leather on my knuckles. Rough night? I spun around to find Coach Biggs sitting on a bench near the ring, watching me with the patient expression of a man who'd seen everything at least twice. "What are you doing here?" I asked, pulling off my gloves. "Saw the videos. Social media's a hell of a thing." He stood up, moving with the careful grace of a man whose body had taken decades of punishment. "Figured you might end up here." "Videos? Already?" "Kid, half the people at that party were recording. You're probably trending on Twitter by now." He studied my face. "Question is, how do you feel about it?" I thought about that for a moment. How did I feel? Vindicated, guilty, satisfied, empty? "I don't know," I said finally. "I thought I'd feel better, more complete. Revenge is like that. Tastes good going down, but it doesn't always settle well in your stomach." "She deserved it. They all deserved it." "Maybe they did. But what about your daughter? Did she deserve to watch her family implode in front of a crowd?" The question I'd been avoiding. The guilt I'd been pushing down. Emily's face when she realized what was happening, the confusion and hurt in her eyes. "I didn't have a choice," I said. "They were going to destroy me anyway. At least this way the truth came out. There's always a choice, son. The question is whether you can live with the one you made." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Emily. "Dad, please come get me. I don't want to ride home with Mom." I showed the message to Coach Biggs. "She needs me." "Then go. Be her father, not her lawyer. She's going to need someone to help her make sense of all this." I changed back into my tuxedo and drove back toward the venue. The parking lot was mostly empty now, just a few cars belonging to the cleanup crew and the stragglers who couldn't resist lingering to dissect the drama. Emily was waiting by the entrance, still in her blue dress but with her arms wrapped around herself like armor. Cameron was beside her, looking uncomfortable and out of his depth. "Dad," she said when she saw me. Her voice was small, younger than her 16 years. "Hey, sweetheart. You okay?" "No, I'm not okay. Nothing's okay." She got in the passenger seat while Cameron climbed into the back. "How long have you known?" "About the affair?" "I found out yesterday." "And you decided to—" "What? Blow everything up in public?" I started driving, choosing my words carefully. "Your mother was planning to humiliate me tonight. She was going to announce the affair in front of everyone, make me look like a fool. I just beat her to it." So this was revenge? This was justice. It was cruel. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Whatever Mom did, that was cruel. She wasn't wrong. It had been cruel, calculated, designed to cause maximum damage. But it had also been effective. "Sometimes the truth is cruel," I said, "and sometimes the truth can wait until you're not destroying your daughter's life in the process." That stung, because she was right, and I knew it. I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own need for vindication, that I hadn't fully considered the cost to Emily. "I'm sorry you had to see that," I said. "I'm sorry you got caught in the middle." "Are you? Because it seems like you planned this whole thing pretty carefully. Did you ever think about how it would affect me?" I didn't answer, because the truth was uncomfortable. I had thought about Emily, but only in abstract terms. I'd convinced myself that she'd understand, that she'd see the justice in what I was doing. I hadn't considered the immediate emotional impact of watching her parents destroy each other in public. We drove the rest of the way home in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, Emily turned to me one more time. "I know Mom was wrong," she said. "I know she hurt you. But what you did tonight, that wasn't justice, Dad. That was revenge. And there's a difference." She got out of the car and walked toward the house, Cameron following uncertainly behind her. I sat in the driveway for a long time, engine running, thinking about the difference between justice and revenge. My phone buzzed with another notification, a text from an unknown number. "Saw the videos. Impressive work. We should talk." B. Bobby. My assistant had been watching the drama unfold from a distance, and apparently she had thoughts about it. I typed back, "Tomorrow. Office. 8 a.m. Her response came immediately. "Already there. Working on something you're going to want to see." I turned off the engine and headed inside. The house felt different now, larger, emptier, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. Marisol's presence was everywhere, but she wasn't here. Probably staying with Serena, or maybe she'd found a hotel room. In my study, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat down at my desk. Outside, I could hear the sound of Emily talking on the phone, probably to her friends, trying to make sense of what had happened. My computer chimed with an email notification, then another. Then a flood of them, reporters, colleagues, friends, strangers who'd seen the videos and wanted comments, explanations, interviews. I ignored them all and opened a new document. If I was going to be the villain in this story, I might as well embrace the role completely. Time to start planning the sequel. Because Serena had been right about one thing, this wasn't over, not by a long shot. I woke up at 5 a.m. with a headache that felt like divine retribution and the taste of bourbon coating my mouth like regret. The house was silent. Emily was probably still asleep, and Marisol hadn't come home. I'd fallen asleep at my desk, still wearing my tuxedo, surrounded by empty glasses and the glow of my computer screen. My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 200 text messages. The top of my Twitter feed was a video of me at the microphone, with the caption, "Lawyer destroys cheating wife at charity gala. Savage." It had been retweeted 8,000 times. I was viral. Congratulations to me. I showered, put on a fresh suit, and drove to the office through streets that looked the same as always, but felt different somehow. Like I was seeing my city through the eyes of someone who'd burned all his bridges in one spectacular blaze. Bobby was indeed already at the office, sitting at her desk with multiple monitors displaying what looked like financial records and legal documents. She looked up when I walked in, her expression unreadable. "Coffee's fresh," she said. "You're going to need it." I poured a cup and joined her at her workstation. "What am I looking at?" "The aftermath. Also, some interesting discoveries about your wife's business dealings." She clicked through several screens. "The videos from last night have been viewed over 50,000 times across various platforms. The story's been picked up by 3 local news stations and 2 gossip blogs. Your phone's been ringing all morning. Reporters, mostly, but also some potential clients." "Potential clients?" "Apparently, publicly destroying your cheating spouse is good for business." "Who knew?" She pulled up another screen. "But here's the really interesting part. Remember those expense account irregularities we found? I did some more digging." The screen showed a complex web of financial transactions, money flowing between various accounts and companies. It took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. "Marisol's been embezzling," I said. Not just from you, from her own agency, from client accounts, from the charity you sponsored last night. She's been running a sophisticated shell game, moving money around to cover her tracks. And Serena's been helping her. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something that might have been admiration for the sheer audacity of it. How much? Best estimate? About $200,000 over the past 18 months. Maybe more. $200,000. My wife hadn't just been cheating on me, she'd been running a criminal enterprise. And I'd thought the hotel receipts were bad. There's more, Bobby continued. Rafe's company, the one Marisol's agency was supposedly doing marketing for, it's a front. Shell Corporation registered in Delaware, no actual business operations, no employees except Rafe himself. The whole thing's a fraud. So the marketing contract was fake? The marketing contract was money laundering. Marisol would invoice Rafe's company for services never rendered. Rafe would pay the invoices with money from the embezzled funds, and they'd split the proceeds. Very clever, actually. I stared at the financial records, trying to process the magnitude of what I was seeing. This wasn't just adultery. This was organized crime. My wife and her lover were running a sophisticated fraud operation, using her business as a front and my money as seed capital. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because last night, you fired the opening shot in what's going to be a very ugly war, and wars require ammunition. Bobby turned to face me, her expression serious. Gideon, these people aren't just cheaters, they're criminals. And now that you've exposed them publicly, they're going to come after you with everything they have. As if on cue, my office phone rang. The caller ID showed my home number. Gideon. Marisol's voice was cold, controlled, nothing like the broken woman I'd left at the venue last night. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at the house in an hour. I don't think that's a good idea. It wasn't a request. The line went silent. I looked at Bobby. How fast can you get all of this to the FBI? Already done. I have a contact in the white-collar crime division. Agent Sarah Martinez. She's expecting your call. Bobby handed me a business card. But Gideon, you need to be careful. If they're willing to embezzle $200,000, they might be willing to do other things to protect themselves. I thought about Serena's promise in the parking lot. This isn't over. At the time, I'd assumed she meant social retaliation, maybe some kind of public relations campaign to rehabilitate Marisol's image. But if they were looking at serious federal charges, I can handle myself. I'm sure you can. But maybe don't handle yourself alone. Bobby pulled out her phone. I'm calling Marcus. You need backup. 30 minutes later, I was driving home with Marcus in the passenger seat, both of us tense with anticipation. Marcus had been horrified when I'd shown him the financial evidence, but he'd agreed to come along as a witness to whatever Marisol was planning. This is insane, he said for the third time. I mean, I knew she was cheating, but embezzlement, money laundering, this is like something out of a movie. Yeah, well, apparently I've been married to a criminal mastermind for 12 years and never noticed. Don't beat yourself up. She fooled everyone. We pulled into my driveway to find Marisol's car already there, along with two others I didn't recognize. Through the front window, I could see figures moving around in my living room. She brought friends, Marcus observed. Of course she did. We walked to the front door, and I used my key to let us in. The living room had been transformed into what looked like a war room. Marisol, Serena, Rafe, and two men in expensive suits I didn't recognize, all gathered around my coffee table with laptops and documents spread out like battle plans. Gideon, Marisol said without looking up. Right on time. This is my house, I said. What the hell is going on here? One of the men in suits stood up, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of predatory confidence that screamed high-powered attorney. Mr. Hale, I'm David Sterling, Ms. Vega's legal counsel. We need to discuss your behavior last night. My behavior? Defamation of character, intentional infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy, The list goes on. Your little performance last night was not only cruel, it was potentially criminal. I laughed, the sound echoing off the walls of my own home. Criminal? That's rich, coming from a room full of embezzlers and fraudsters. Sterling's expression didn't change. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Your clients have been running a sophisticated fraud operation for the past 18 months, embezzling money from multiple sources and using a fake marketing contract to launder the proceeds. Now Sterling looked less confident. That's a very serious accusation. It's also completely true. I have documentation, financial records, the whole paper trail. In fact, I've already turned everything over to the FBI. The room went silent. Marisol's face had gone pale, and Rafe looked like he was about to be sick. Serena was staring at her laptop screen like it might contain an escape route. You're bluffing, Sterling said, but his voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and showed him Agent Martinez's contact information. Feel free to call and confirm. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. Sterling looked at the phone, then at his clients, then back at me. We'll need a moment to confer. Take all the time you need, but do it somewhere else. This is my house, and you're no longer welcome here. Actually, Marisol said, finally speaking up, this is our house, community property. I have as much right to be here as you do. Not for long. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. And given the criminal fraud you've been committing, I doubt you'll be getting much in the settlement. Marisol stood up, her composure finally cracking. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? You think you're the hero in this story? I think I'm the guy who got played by a criminal and decided to do something about it. You humiliated me in front of the entire city. You humiliated yourself. I just provided the venue. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You have no idea what you've started. You think this is over? You think you've won? This is just the beginning, Gideon. Before I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd never been born. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Marcus stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating tension. Maybe we should all take a step back. No, I said, keeping my eyes on Marisol. I want to hear this. I want to hear exactly what my loving wife is planning to do to me. Serena finally looked up from her laptop. Gideon, you need to understand something. We're not just going to roll over and let you destroy us. We have resources. We have connections. We have information about you that you wouldn't want to become public. Such as your little problem with alcohol, the nights you come home drunk, the way you've been neglecting Emily, the anger management issues. That's enough, Marcus interrupted. This is getting out of hand. But I was fascinated. Keep going. What else do you have? Rafe finally found his voice. The boxing gym. Those late-night sessions when you thought no one was watching. Very therapeutic, I'm sure, but what would your clients think if they knew their lawyer was working out his aggression by beating the shit out of inanimate objects? They'd probably think I was showing remarkable restraint by not beating the shit out of animate objects. Sterling cleared his throat. Mr. Hale, perhaps we can reach some kind of arrangement. A mutual non-disclosure agreement, perhaps. You don't pursue these alleged financial irregularities, and we don't pursue the defamation claims. No deal. You might want to reconsider. Divorce proceedings can get very messy, very public. Custody battles, financial disputes, character assassination, it could drag on for years. I looked around the room at these people who'd invaded my home, threatened my reputation, and stolen my money. Marisol with her cold fury, Serena with her calculating malice, Rafe with his entitled arrogance, Sterling with his legal threats. Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my house. All of you. Now. Gideon, Marisol started. Now! The word exploded out of me with enough force to rattle the windows. Everyone in the room took a step back, suddenly remembering that I was 6 feet tall and had been spending a lot of time at the boxing gym. They gathered their things quickly, Sterling muttering about restraining orders and harassment charges. As they filed toward the door, Marisol paused beside me. "This isn't over," she said one more time. "Yes," I said. "It is. You just don't know it yet." After they left, Marcus and I stood in my living room, surrounded by the debris of my former life. Outside, I could hear car doors slamming and engines starting as my enemies retreated to plan their next move. "What now?" Marcus asked. I walked to my bar cart and poured 2 glasses of bourbon, handing one to my oldest friend. "Now we wait for the FBI to do their job, and we prepare for war." "You sure about this? Once you go down this road, there's no coming back." I thought about Emily, probably at school right now, dealing with the aftermath of last night's drama. I thought about my reputation, my career, my future. I thought about the choice between justice and revenge, and whether there was really any difference. "I'm sure," I said. "They want to play hardball? Let's play hardball." Marcus raised his glass. "To hardball, then." To hardball. We drank, and outside, the first drops of rain began to fall against the windows like tears.